Welcome to the Market Mindset. We are the hub for news, results, and CEO interviews focusing the junior commodities sector. We provide market analysis and perspective that will help position you for solid returns. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can help support us by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and clicking the notification bell. For more info, you can visit our website. All links are in the description below. Now let's get into today's video.
Good morning, it's Andrew O'Donnell with the Market Mindset. Today we're speaking with Cristiano Veloso, who's Director and CEO over at Verde Agritech. This is a really interesting potash story. So we're talking about fertilizer again. They reached out to me, and this is part of the fun and the treat of my job is having access to some incredible minds and incredible companies. And this company did really well last year, and they have set their sales for 2022. I'm not as familiar with potash. I do know it's so important with fertilizer, but that's why we're here. We're going to learn a little something today, and we're going to hear about the business and their outlook for 2022. So good morning, Cristiano. How are you? It's a pleasure having you on. Looking forward to hearing everything that's been going on, especially the last 2 years. And then also, we kind of look at this as being, especially for myself, a bit of an education in potash and kind of telling us why especially last year was so successful, and your outlook for 2022 is very strong. So with that, I won't give away any spoilers. How's today, and let us know the whole story.
Yeah, hi Andrew. It's a pleasure being here in your show. Well, as you said, the last 12 months have been very exciting for potash once again. I say once again because a few years ago, there was an equal amount of excitement. So we had BHP, the world's largest mining company, trying to buy this Canadian company, which at the time was called Potash Corporation of Saskatchewan. Everyone was concerned about food supply, and agricultural commodity prices were very strong. And what happened from back then until where we are nowadays, from a global perspective, is that we were very lucky. We're very lucky with the weather. So we had near perfect weather for several years, and thanks to that near perfect weather we saw, we had bumper harvests, and we saw food prices coming down a lot. With food prices coming down a lot, every input farmer needs will go down the price. But in the last little while, we had a few things happening. First, as with everything in life, we stopped being as lucky as we were in the last 5 years, and the weather once again became a little bit more erratic. So a very small disruption in terms of the weather already caused a major spike in food prices. We have all the agricultural commodities trading significantly higher than they were a few years ago, with the forecast for getting even stronger. So that's what happened from a climate perspective. What has also happened from a geopolitical point of view was that a gentleman called Lukashenko, who runs a country called Belarus, regarded by some as being the last dictator in Europe, he decided to crush some opposition, and Europe decided to respond with sanctions. It only happens that the main product that this little country in Europe exports is potash. That small country, most people had never heard of until recently, happens to represent about 1/4 of all potash supplied globally. 1/4. And that wouldn't perhaps be so much of a problem if, one, it was easy to produce potash, and two, you also had other players who could jump in and start making up for the problem with the potash that was coming from Belarus. Well, going back to the first point, it's not easy for you to extract potash. For you to build a conventional potash mine, you're looking at anything from 7 to 10 years from construction to ramp up. You're looking at anything from $2 to $10 billion in capex. It's very deep mines. You're going down 1,000, 2,000 meters deep until you start extracting the mineral, and it's time consuming. So that is the first problem. The second problem I made reference is the supply is very concentrated. So it's not only Lukashenko who has a big hold in potash supplies. There's another gentleman, his neighbor, and pal, who accounts for another quarter of potash supply, who is Vladimir Putin. So Putin controls about 1/4 of global, well, some people, might even go beyond and say that because he controls what happens with Belarus nowadays, some people might say that he controls more than half of all globally traded potash supply. But then at least you have, the nice Canadians who represent 25% of the other supply. So it's a very, very tightly held market. So you saw prices going up, they are still up. And when you talk to people in the industry, there is very little hope with that prices coming down again.
So with you've been out with Verde for well over 10 years. Is that correct?
It's a bit longer than that.
Okay.
I started the company in 2005.
Okay.
So it was my baby. Now it's my teenager who's 17 years old. I took the company public in 2007. And as a very responsible dad, I made sure the share count in this now teenager stayed very tight throughout the whole history.
Yes.
So even though we're 17 years old company, profitable, expanding profits, expanding cash flow, looking at ways to distribute gains to shareholders, we have only, throughout the whole history of the company, only issued 50 million shares.
Incredible.
We've raised over this period around $70 million, which was invested in the development of the project, and we've kept dilution to a minimum. Instead of doing what most development companies do, which is just to blow up your capital structure when it comes to the point of building a mine and getting to profitability, we're very unique that we managed to keep the share count very low, get to production, and very importantly, we've been able to declare independency from Bay Street or Wall Street or the capital markets. So we're independent from the investment bankers, we're independent from the brokers who like to come and try to help CEOs and founders of the company to dilute their capital structure, completely eroding the chance and prospect of investors making any real money. So we're very proud. Some people have said we hold the record of the company that was able to get to profitability and expanding with issuing less shares. Apparently, we hold this TSX record. I'm not saying we do. That's what I was told.
I would think it's got to be close.
It's got to be close. It's an unverified claim. I would love someone to go and verify that, but we're very proud about what we achieved. People who have been with us throughout the years, they recognize that, and I hope that for people who are the first time hearing about the company, I hope they see it the way we treated investors up to this point. They see it as how our culture is, how our ethos is, and how we will carry on developing the business.
Absolutely. And I mean, I like to point out share price because sometimes it means a lot and other times it may not mean anything. But in this case, just to kind of keep a scorecard here, year to date. So just for 2022, so starting January 1st, you guys are up 62%. Now, if we go back year to date, You guys are up 360%. And if we just look back to even just March 20th of 2020, the growth has been spectacular. And it's that kind of growth where you haven't blown out that structure. That, I mean, it has to be a record, or pretty darn close, to be able to keep that share count down and not take money in bad terms and in tough times.
Until January this year, for the previous results for the previous years, we wouldn't put out a guidance with a guidance on earnings. Would put a guidance, we didn't even call it guidance, and we call it targets. And those targets were based on revenue, were based on tonnage. Last years, we've been able to significantly beat those guidance. For example, last year, we had to increase it 2 or 3 times. And we're going to have the final result for 2021 published on the 30th of March. So there's a lot of expectation whether we're going to beat again a guidance that had been increased 2 or 3 times before, and we'll find out in March. When we put out the guidance for the first time this year for the results of 2022, we came up with an EPS of 50 cents per share. What we also came up with, in addition to an EPS for 2022 of 50 cents, that's based on 700,000 tons, was a guidance for the following year, 2023, of double that, which is in line with our triple-digit growth of 1.4 million tons. We didn't say, it's going to be double on EPS because, it's a bit too soon, but we felt comfortable about putting a guidance in terms of tonnage. So at 50 cents, you can work out what sort of multiple where we are. You can work out what sort of growth rate we have historically. You can work out our history of beating guidances, and you can make our call. We like to think it's still day one at Verde, and even though those numbers start to look exciting, it's important to refer everyone to what you were alluding to, which is the size of our mine and the size of the Brazilian market. So the Brazilian market at the moment is worth about $12 billion. So it's around $12 billion annually. That's how much Brazilian farmers spend on imported potash. And I say imported because 97% of it is imported. So $12 billion. If you look at the size of our resources and reserves, we have enough raw material to supply that $12 billion market for several decades, several decades, supplying 100% of it. That's only to give an idea of the size of the deposit. I'm not saying we're going to supply that anytime soon, or if we're ever going to be able to do all of that. But if you go back and look at our PFS, our pre-feasibility study done in 2017, that looked at supplying about a quarter of that market, and using a potash price, which was about a third of the current potash price. That gives us a net present value of about $2 billion US, which would translate into about $50 Canadian dollars share price on a net present value basis. That's another way to look at yes. that. And that's with an 8% discount rate. And that's wow. Post-tax. So yes, we like to say this is still day one.
Yep.
And we're only talking about potash here in the market, and I'm, all the geopolitics factors associated made it very exciting. But what's truly exciting about what we're doing, the key number people really need to care about is how much chloride we are saving our environment from every time we replace imported potash. The amount of chloride spread over soils annually, it's 60 million tons of potassium chloride. If you look at the impact of that chloride on your soil microbiome, the microorganisms that live in our soils, this equals 500 billion liters of bleach, of Clorox. So every year we're using 500 billion liters of Clorox, which are destroying the soil microbiome year after year. Until recently, there weren't enough technologies for you to understand the importance of soil microbiome to our health, to the health of soils, to the resilience of crops, to the yields, to the productivity, but it has changed thanks to Lumina, PacBio, and other companies with innovation. Now scientists can truly understand, farmers can understand that. And a very important group of scientists has used those technologies to understand how much carbon those microorganisms can capture into soils. And it's a gigantic amount, which year after year, the usage of potassium salt-based fertilizers help killing. So every time a farmer stops using potassium chloride and uses ours is a major contribution towards nature's natural mechanism of capturing carbon into soils. And that's something very important for us, very important for our company. That's something some people, it's natural. We'll look at how much tonnage we're selling. It's more money, the money the company is making. But we also look at this and say, well, the more product we sell, the more we improve the planet's health.
Now, is there a type of movement? You know how there's carbon credits and there's all these other attributes that, say, an energy company can get because that you're in a specific area that's critical. So I just know a tiny bit about soil because my brother's actually got a smaller type farm in Ireland, and he talks about biodiversity, he talks about the soil management. And I like to watch some of the Netflix shows. It shows some of the damage we've done over time on some very old practices that just certainly don't work. Is there a way that this gets tied into the kind of like the ESG and the entire environmental movement where you get recognized as well? Because soil management is, I don't think people truly understand. You would, of course, you're in the sector, and of course, farmers, how absolutely critical that is for us moving forward and its role in climate change and the entire environment.
Well, we see that as an upside in terms of more people getting interested in the company, interested in the story. I think we haven't been discovered yet by the ESG-driven funds. And I do see a lot of upside potential once they started understanding what we're doing and the importance of what we're doing.
So that's exciting in and of itself, because when we talk about things, like I always like to, we're in the stock market, we like to make some money, but we always approach it with, it's more important nowadays, and I'll say this for myself, I'd rather get 20% on something that I know is of benefit to a lot of people. That's not only the right thing, but it's in line with the way I view the world in a sustainable green kind of way, rather than, I can make 50% or 60% and we'll just cut corners and we'll do this and that. I think a lot of those days are coming to an end to some degree, that kind of real vulture capitalist, and a lot more young people are much more interested to go, I want to do the right thing and I want to find some solutions here. And there's nothing wrong with using capital markets to do that. Like, that's fine. But if we could align our goals or our personal values with where we want to see the earth and make some money, no harm in that. That's great. That's perfect.
Yeah, that's a bit how I feel, when it costs us about $10 to produce the product with the technology, and then we sell it to the farmers for about $120. 12 times more than it costs, and that's a bit how we feel as well in terms of in addition to a 12 times 12 times greater sales price and some very big margins, and we're making tons of money here, but we're also making a big contribution to the environment.
You mentioned there's a couple key things that are coming in soon. So this guidance will be in March. So everyone always asks me, listen, this stock has gone up a lot. Has it reached its peak? What's the urgency? What's the concern? And I always like to see if there's urgency. Certainly with news coming out in March, there's urgency. People can look and go, oh, I wonder if they're going to hit that guidance or not. That's a big step. What are some other things that people can kind of keep on their mind to see, okay, are they on track? Are they hitting their milestones? Where is there a blueprint that they can kind of write down on the side of their computer to follow?
Yes, there is. We will have some news about a permit, a very important permit we applied, and we expect it to be issued some point, let's say first half of this year. That will be very, very important. There's a lot of people really, really looking forward to that permit, like ourselves. There is also some more information about our profit for growth strategy. So we launched something we're calling a profit for growth. And this was made possible because we were able to secure a line of credit from Banco do Brasil, where they are taking our sales agreements, future sales agreements, so stuff we're selling next year or later in the year, and they're giving us the money now. So that freed up a lot of capital. So we're already looking at ways to distribute gains to shareholders. So there will be more updates about how we intend to be doing that in the coming weeks. There will be some updates as well in terms of our feasibility study I had just mentioned. If the previous one had $2 billion US dollars net present value, with a potash price a third of the current one, with the market, which perhaps now we can be looking at a greater market, it's natural to expect a very exciting next study. Yes, and then of course, because we're putting out the result for the end of last year, end of March, not long after, in May, we already have our Q1 result. Okay. Our Q1 result 2022, where there will be a lot of excitement as well from people to see if we're going to be able to hit the milestone we said we would in terms of Q1 EPS.
Well, these are the types of stories I love, and I'm so grateful that you reached out, because finding little hidden gems like this is they're out there, but this was so special because I hadn't heard of you, and that's why I'm looking forward to getting this out to people, letting my subscribers know here is a story that's very compelling. So we'll leave it at that for now. I really appreciate you kind of educating us. Great, wonderful. And we're going to check in, and we're definitely going to make sure we'll watch for any kind of updates that come out and to see if you hit these metrics. But what a year, especially in such a chaotic year. You guys are just killing it. We're looking forward to seeing some of these results that we're going to see very soon as well.
Sounds good. It was a great pleasure meeting you, Andrew. Thanks a lot for your interest, and look forward to giving you more frequent updates as we progress.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.